Showtime! Folks, I think we should have a show. What do you think? It's a good idea? Salute, 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 salute. You guys get a bunch of salutes. Here's a couple more, because I respect you guys. No, seriously, I have a lot of affection for everybody dropping in. Let's talk about some comics tonight. My name is Chris. I'm the host of the Weekly Spinner Rack. We've got a bunch of comic book news tonight. Really diverse, too. You know, we're talking about some of the comic book movies, stuff to do with the unions. We're talking about Alan Moore and Black Lives Matter. How did that come into play? We've got comic book contests taking place at Disney Paris. We've got Rob Liefeld homaging an infamous drawing of his. We've got some amazing and interesting new comics to talk about. This one's pretty impressive, folks. But anyway, we'll get to all that. Tell you what, let's throw in some hellos real quick. I know I'm not getting everybody, but I'm just kind of rattle through some of the folks who are always here at the beginning. Oh, Daniel, how do you want me to reach out to you and tell you like which days I'm around? Because I would like to say hello to you. I've been really busy, man, but I would love to say hello in Japan. Yes, so I am leaving soon for a little bit. Hello, sister. Lovely to have you here. And yeah, it's nice. You know, unfortunately, I've got somebody house sitting and taking care of the cats and the koi and stuff like that. But I'm excited. I'm excited and a little nervous about all the different stuff that I've got to do over there. But I think my wife and I are going to have a fantastic time. I'm really excited. Let's see. So, is there anything that I should cover before I start in with the news? Let's see. Just good house cleanup stuff. Let me think. I guess just that, like, Comic Tropes, my main show, I'm almost done editing the next episode. I should be able to upload that just before I leave, so that's good. I'm excited for you guys to see that. And then also, Comic Tropes is up for an award, actually 2 awards on the Comic Book Community Awards. So if you go to cbcawards.org, I definitely appreciate a vote. They've got that open through mid-November to vote, so thank you. Let's see. Is the house sitter going to host the spinner rack? No. I'm going to, if I can, I will do a live stream in Japan, like just from my phone, I guess. Something like that. We will see. I'm trying to figure it out. Thank you for the super chat, Steve. Yeah, I'm going to try. I'm sure I can do at least some sort of a live stream. Am I going to be able to do it at the same schedule? I'm not sure. Am I going to be able to, like throw up graphics for the news that I'm talking about? I'm not sure. I'm playing some of that by ear, folks. But if I can, I definitely want to share things with you. Thank you, Rivi. That's really nice of you. I appreciate that. Looks like I'm getting a tiny bit of lag on this camera today. I'm really sorry about that, folks. Yeah, darn. I think that it looks like my internet speed isn't quite as perfect as it should be. Hey, Bronze Age Nerd, lovely to have you here. Thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it. Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you. Dreamland Nightmare. You know what's frustrating? I'm about to leave, and I'm thinking, I've got this huge flight ahead of me. And I go, what would be fun to do? I don't want to take lots of stuff, like heavy books and stuff. I go, you know what? I never use my Nintendo Switch. And for my birthday this past summer, my family got me that new Zelda game. Perfect. I'll have some time to play this new Zelda game. I cannot find my Switch anywhere. I just use it so infrequently. I have no idea where I left it. I've still got some time to try to find it, but I really just I don't think I'm going to find it, and I'm so frustrated. I really love to play a Switch. Oh well. Will the live stream be in Japanese? No, my Japanese is not that good. I think I've got enough sort of vocabulary and phrases to make this trip a little smoother than some in terms of just being more polite to people that I see and be able to ask more questions. I don't really think I could easily have a conversation. So essentially, I'd be like, Nihongo hanasemasen. But technically, I think I've got a pretty good grasp, and I think Chrissy's in even better shape. That hurts to hear. There is sort of an American comic book scene. I will try to make a travel vlog at some of the comic book shops I'm going to go to, and you'll see that there are basically imported trade paperbacks of a lot of the stuff you'd see here. You know, Batman, Spider-Man, Walking Dead, but it tends to be the biggest, most popular stuff, and it tends to be in trade paperback form. The live stream will be dubbed, not subbed. Exactly. But tell you what, let's see. Let's just go ahead and get into the news. Yeah, I would say not my best thumbnail in the sense that I had trouble getting the lighting right on myself, and it's basically the same poses I used last week. But that's just my little fun critique on my own little thumbnails. Like, can you get a load of this? That's what's supposed to be implied. Can you get a load of that? But let's get into some news instead of just talking about me. And I want to start with this. Alex Ross won a Reuben Award this week. So the National Cartoonists Society has been hosting awards for a very long time, basically going back to the golden age of comics when comics were primarily comic strips. So a lot of the awards are actually for comic strips and political cartoons and things like that. But he won a Reuben Award from them this year. That's the name of their awards. And if you're not clear on what that is, the Reuben Award is named after Rube Goldberg, famous for creating those comics where it was like, like one wacky thing leads to another, like, just convoluted contraptions. And I'm sure you've seen videos and stuff like that on either TikTok or was it OK Go used to make videos like that. Anyway, thank you, Joe. I appreciate the support. That's really, really nice of you. I love it. Thank you. What if PAC and CT were to air weekly in Japan? Pros and cons and comic tropes to air weekly. Hey, if I move there, it will. No, folks, not named after a sandwich. The Reuben Award is named after Rube Goldberg, famous cartoonist. And so the specific category that Alex Ross picked up an award for was Best Graphic Novel for his book Full Circle, which I do recommend. It's a really cool graphic novel. It's a complete story, gives you everything you need to know about the Fantastic Four and gives them a good adventure. And it's a little different in that he drew it all, he illustrated it all as compared to painting it. So it looks it's noticeably his style, but it looks a little different too. It's really nice. Other nominees, there were like 3 finalists. The other 2 were Colleen Duran. A lot of you probably know about her comics for her book Chivalry, which I believe she does with Neil Gaiman, and then Christian Misi for Time Shopper. I remember that was a Kickstarter comic. I can't remember who the writer was, but anyway, happy for Alex Ross to get some recognition, because Full Circle was definitely him stretching his creative muscles, and I always love supporting comic book artists that are trying to do something new with either their art or ideally with the art form. So that's kind of cool. Global Comics. Global Comics is one of many digital comics platforms that is emerging in the wake of Amazon's Comixology collapsing. So some news there is that Global Comics has already launched its desktop portal for reading digital comics. They already did that this year. But this week, they announced that they have plans for the phone app version to read like digital comics on your phone, which is honestly, if you're going to read digital comics, a lot of people do it that way. They say that will be released before the end of the year. They've already made some steps towards that. There is a beta version available for iPhones right now. There's a Global Comics app on iPhones, and they said that the Android one is coming soon. But then again, they also say that the full version will be out before the end of the year. Will that be so? I don't know, but they definitely have had a lot of key partnerships. We're talking books by Blum, and Blum has had an amazing year. We're talking about Archie. Archie's definitely still in the spotlight thanks to TV shows and movies, and Image Comics. So some really key publishers have signed up to, release stuff digitally through Global Comics. Yeah, I do understand that concern. Like a couple people mentioning how it's hard to read, but keep in mind, they one of the things Global Comics says is that they have their own sort of guided reader view, so you don't have to look at the full page. You can zoom in by tapping it, and it'll zoom in on the panel. That could help, I suppose. I think you'd be surprised at like the size of comic book lettering for a panel on the screen compared to, say, reading various social media. I think you'd find that it is somewhat comparable. But the ideal way of reading on a phone would probably be to just have vertical panels so that it's sized properly width-wise to begin with, and you don't have to zoom in and out based on different sizes of panels. That would probably read better. That's what they do in Korea anyway. When I read on my phone, I have to use the panel-by-panel option. Sure. Vertical comics are good for phones. Totally agree, Dr. Schubill. And yes, like I started with, they do have a desktop version. I kind of agree with you, Beowulf. I have a bit of a hard time just sort of looking at a zoomed in panel where everything disappears. It's good for readability. It sort of kills for me the composition and layout and storytelling that the artists have put thought into, because they designed it for like a full page. So I do agree that is a concern. That's why I would say that like the best digital comics option typically would probably be to format it with this format in mind and have it vertical. I think that would be nice. Well, I think that some of the people that founded Global Comics were some key folks from Comixology, so it isn't a huge surprise that it works similar, just to be clear. Tablet reading is amazing. I've done a little of that. Yeah. I think that out of the various new digital platforms that are coming to try to take that Comixology market share, it seems like Global Comics has a bit of a leg up on its competition. But we'll see. It's hard to guess where this will shake out. I had Comixology set up to show me the whole page and then guided view, and then the full page view again before the page flip. That's a decent compromise considering like what they're working with. They're trying to show you something digitally that was designed for print. Yeah, I think the new competition will ultimately be good. It's really upsetting how badly Amazon ruined a really nice platform, because Comixology did have a lot of good reviews for a while there. They just really gave up on it. And I think they're going to lose market share. This looked fun to me. It would be something I would strongly consider even today at my age, if I happen to live back where I grew up in the Boston area. Mass Art is offering a certificate in comic arts. So let's talk about that. The program they've launched is called Visual Storytelling and Comics Art. Cool. It's taught by two cartoonists who've had their work out for many, many years. Mostly like online and newspaper type comics, but that's fine. They know the business and stuff. It's comprised of 8 7-week classes. So to get the certificate, it's not just one class. We are talking a full curriculum. 8 classes, 7 weeks each. It includes the business side of things, so that, like, people have a good understanding of rights and contracts and just how to not get screwed. And then they have some specific classes that I thought sounded like it makes sense if you were to look into something like this. Cartooning and narrative illustration, panel to panel sequential storytelling, we're talking. Nonfiction and memoir comics. I think that does have some unique things to learn. So that, because I've taught a writing for comics class, and that makes sense to me. And another one that seems like it would appeal to a lot of people, character design and world building. Definitely important. Definitely important. Let's see. Went by there every day on my commute to Children's. Yes, my sister worked at Children's Hospital in Boston for a long time. So I'm sure you did see mass art. I don't think I ever took any classes there, but I'm not 100% sure, because I did take several sort of like non-credit art classes here and there when I lived in the Boston area, both as a teenager and then after I graduated college. I briefly lived, well, not briefly, like a few years I lived back in Boston, and I took some classes, but I don't remember if I went to mass art or not right now. Last thing I want to say about this class is just that it's non-credit, and because of how many classes are in there, they say that it would probably take you about a year. But so it's not really for, like, people that are in college and want to get the credit. This is legit for people that are, just looking to maybe tell their own comic, or maybe they think that they have a good idea for, a humor comic, a biography, a historical, who knows what it is. Maybe they just do want to do a superhero book, but they don't know how to begin, and how to do it properly. This class is for them. At almost any age. It sounds interesting to me. If you live in the New England area, might be something worth looking up. I went to business. I got my degree, I should say, in business management with a focus in marketing. And some of that was a little bit by default. Don't regret it. Worked in that industry for like over 15 years. Did well, I would say. If I knew then what I know now, I might pick a more artistic type of class, because I have to admit, when I chose marketing, I did sort of have the working assumption that meant I could become one of the guys in advertising that creates the ads. But really that tends to be more the illustration classes, and you might take some like a marketing minor or something. I didn't really know that at the time. But anyway. Is there a reason why this wouldn't count for credit, though? That's up to the school, I think. It's up to the school. No, I don't believe it's online. I believe it's only in person, but I didn't double check that. Anyway, just thought it would be kind of fun to talk about. If you want more info on that, like, you can easily look it up. Like I say, it's called Visual Storytelling and Comics Art Certificate, and it's at Mass Art, the Massachusetts College of Art and Design. A place called Catch Up Entertainment got the Hellboy reboot movie rights. I was like, what? What are we talking about here? Like, there've already been 3 Hellboy movies. This is going to be the 4th Hellboy movie. But I don't know. Like, this made me a little nervous, because I had never heard of Catch Up Entertainment. So the Hellboy movie is based on The Crooked Man here, Mike Mignola and Richard Corbin. And that movie recently finished shooting. I believe that they filmed it in Romania. But they finished, and so that's done. The story is great. It's a really good comic. It's set in the 1950s. Hellboy and a rookie Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense agent, they both get stuck in, like, rural Appalachia with a town that's, I say haunted, but it's a little deeper than that. But I don't want to give away the story if you haven't read it. But it's definitely very, very creepy. Creepier than you might expect. Anyway, Catch Up Entertainment got the rights to the film and will figure out getting it distributed. So we have them to thank. And who is Catch Up Entertainment? Well, they previously worked on parody movies like Superfast and The Starving Games. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember. There was this period of time, a little over 10 years ago, I would say, where like there were these two writers who just tried to make like just a parody of every popular genre. They made like, superhero movie and epic movie and date movie, and they made like a Fast and Furious parody and a Hunger Games parody. I think they made a Twilight parody. Not great movies. Not great movies. But who knows? They do. If I'm going to give them credit for one thing, I think that first of all they also helped import like a live action manga. Like a manga movie adaptation. I can't remember which one that was off the top of my head. They are in charge of a new Ben Affleck movie that comes out this year, and that's like a big mainstream movie. So who knows? Who knows? They do sound a little like Asylum Films. I don't think that's who they are, but yeah. Captain Harlock. Hey, Nick. Nice to see you. Nick has always been good to me, folks. He's the big honcho at Dynamite Comics. We've been reading some of their stuff here on the show lately. Fire and Ice, some Red Sonja. Helped us interview Sarah Frazetta. That was a lot of fun, I think, on the live stream that night. A lot of people seemed to like that. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Let's see. Yeah, that's a good pun. You guys are faster with the puns than I am. I guess my brain doesn't always work that way. Maybe it does if I have like somebody to riff off of in person. I think I get funnier when I've got people in person. But I'm grateful to have you. Yes, Condiment King is behind this. Catch Up Entertainment. The Fire and Ice 1 only just came out like a week or two ago, TJ. I'm sure that the second issue is right around the corner. But and I know Sarah's writing a Red Sonja story real soon, so that I'm excited for that. All right, that's enough scratching Nick's back. He's doing fine. He doesn't need me. Let's move forward. But he's a really nice guy. As long as I was on Hellboy, I thought I'd mention this because I like Christmas horror. We've talked about that fairly recently. There's that like Eric Powell anthology coming out. There's a James Tynion horror Christmas comic with like a slasher coming out. And there's this, a Hellboy winter special that's Christmas horror. I like Christmas horror. It's a weird sort of subgenre. So Dark Horse announced the Hellboy winter special, The Yule Cat. And that's going to be a one-shot from Mike Mignola, of course, the creator, and artist Matt Smith. I'm not super familiar with Matt Smith, I have to admit. I'm not super familiar. But what's the story? Hellboy's traveling to Iceland to investigate a possible appearance of, and I'm going to butcher this, Daniel, maybe you know how to pronounce like a Icelandic name because it's a little closer to you than it is to me. I don't know. Jólakötturinn, or the urban legend known as the Yule Cat. I assume Yola, like Yule. Kötturinn must mean like something like cat. I'm just guessing though. I really am. I don't know a single bit of any Nordic language. But I did look up the lore. And I love that Hellboy uses actual lore. That's the most fun thing to me. In Icelandic lore, the Yule Cat surfaces the night before Christmas to eat those who do not have new clothes to wear for the holiday. Folks, we've been so focused on the Krampus being sort of an evil Santa Claus that we've totally overlooked the Yule Cat, who punishes people for not wearing new clothes on Christmas. That's fantastic. That's just that is a fantastic thing to adapt. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that. I'd be eaten. I probably would be. I am not usually the kind of guy who gets new clothes for Christmas. I've never really asked for that. The literal fashion police. The Yule Cat definitely helped set all that up. Absolutely. What? I I swear, if you look into like, the Nordic and Scandinavian and Germanic history of the Christmas season, you come across so much interesting mythology. You really do. And yeah. What if the person is poor? I guess maybe the Yule Cat will forgive you if you just have, like, I don't know, a new mitten. I don't know what the exact rules are. I think that's up to us to interpret. Let's see. The Yule Cat going through my Christmas wardrobe in increasing disgust while I shrug. And why you shouldn't wear white after Labor Day. Yes, the Yule Cat also pops up after Labor Day, just to do a double check on that. Who knew Iceland was so worried about new Christmas sweaters? Did Iceland invent ugly Christmas sweater culture? Is this yet another example of big Iceland corporations pushing that new clothes capitalism on us? It's just too much. Love the t-shirt. Thanks. My buddy John got this for me. A nice little parody of Jack Kirby's Hulk cover, but with Friday the 13th. So yeah. Doesn't matter if they're ugly, just that they're new. And hey, who even says they need to be brand new? Maybe they just need to be new to you. Could I just like trade clothes with somebody for Christmas morning? I'd be like, at the last minute, I'd be like, Chrissy, you give me your jacket. You can wear my t-shirt. We just avoided the Yule Cat. Thank God. But anyway, it could be fun. I think this could be fun. And more importantly, it gave me some weird stuff to riff on. So it killed a few minutes of entertainment time. That's more important. What? Oh, okay. There. That's weird. I came across this week. This looks like a very cheap movie, but it's almost comic book related. We're talking about Lion Girl. This is an American movie, but basically this is a Japanese superhero. Japanese superhero movie Lion Girl gets a release date. Something called Cleopatra Entertainment picked up the rights to distribute this movie to North America and the UK. And it's based on a character created by Go Nagai. Go Nagai has created stuff like Devilman and Cutie Honey. Pretty influential mangaka. Pretty influential. And I guess he created Lion Girl. Lion Girl. There she is, folks. Lion Girl. What's the plot? The plot is survivors of a meteor shower find themselves fighting amongst each other, as well as a group of creatures called the Anorak, monsters who hunt and kill humans and extract their life force. Well, that sounds like a hell of a lot of ideas jammed into one thing, so sure. I liked the, what would you call this? Like the tagline, it says, "Thought you had enough superhero movies? Think again." That feels like a threat. Yes, Mazinger Z. All sorts of amazing, very memorable characters. I don't know, man. This is coming out in November, but this was filmed in LA during the height of the pandemic. So I really don't know what to expect of it. Like, it might just be like people on green screen going like, "Hi, how are you?" And the other person's over here going, "I'm good, thanks." Like, I don't know how they did it. They do? All right. Cleopatra puts out cool stuff. Go Nagai has done some weird shit over the years. Yes. Yep. But where are my Grandizer fellows at? Mazinger Z was really influential mecha series. Yes. Force 5. Ghetto Robo. It was weird enough that I just thought I'd have to share that. I have to admit, when I looked at this, it definitely gave me like 1980s low budget Roger Corman vibes, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I have no idea how to compare it to the Saint Seiya live action. I mean, that movie bombed pretty hard. I pieced out on that one. The most recent, like, Shin Ultraman movie was a blast. I really like that. I don't have much more to add to this, but maybe someday I'll do an episode about Go Nagai. That could be interesting. I think that Devilman was pretty influential to some books that came later. like Berserk. I don't know. I read Devilman and I get a little bit of like, yeah, I think that some of this influenced Berserk. Disneyland Paris had essentially an art winner who's going to start drawing one of the Spider-Man books. I think this is an interesting and fun story. Let me break it down. So last June, Disneyland Paris hosted Marvel Art Atelier, and I'm probably butchering the French there. Sorry, I've never studied French, but Marvel Art Atelier, and that was a couple things, to be fair. First of all, they put a bunch of cool art in the New York hotel that's in Disneyland Paris. And then second, it was a training program for a bunch of artists that got mentored by artists who work for Marvel. Among them, people like Oliver Coipel and Peach Momoko. Pretty big names. It was sort of competing, but really just sort of also being mentored. And their art and a bunch of other famous replicas all on display at Disney Paris's New York hotel. The artists sort of had to compete in various themed challenges. One of them was to draw a full page, and they had 24 hours to do that. But, they're trying to produce their absolute best work. Well, the best overall artist was somebody named Federica Manchin, or Mancine, I don't know. And so she was, far and away the best, apparently. And she's now going to debut as the artist of an upcoming issue, Miles Morales Spider-Man number 11. Pretty nice little victory, getting onto a pretty nice mainstream comic. And I guess this issue will feature Miles Morales and Blade teaming up. So he's sort of got some sort of special costume for that. I don't know. I remember Peach Momoko going to Paris. I didn't know it was for this. Apparently so. Apparently so. Yeah. You like the costume. Murado was inspired by Devilman. You can tell by how Rio has elements of Griffith. That's fair. Yeah. I can see what you're talking about with that, actually. Sorry to have missed recent live streams. Sending some pros and cons love. Thank you, Samuel. That's my new catchphrase. Thank you, Samuel. But thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know. Maybe it's just supposed to be cool. I really don't know. It's an interesting jacket design. But yeah. So Marvel Art Atelier. Doesn't Atelier mean something like a school? I think it does, but I don't know French. I'm just sort of basing that off of the manga Witch Hat Atelier, where they learn magic. I don't know though. Somebody out there probably knows. Yes, that's true. Makenyu from One Piece is the son of Sonny Chiba, raised mostly, I think, in Los Angeles. But yeah, he was actually really, really good. Oh, that makes a little more sense. Thank you very much. Lefan Farlow explains that atelier actually means more like workshop. So that's not exactly the same as school. Thank you very much. Another person explaining it. Thank you very much. Yeah, I start this at 5 p.m. my time. Yeah, sadly we lost Sonny Chiba to COVID. Actually, he got sick with COVID back when it was really bad, and I don't think that there was a what do you call it, a vaccine yet when he got it, and so that's too bad, because Sonny Chiba was awesome. And I mean, hopefully you've seen him in stuff like Street Fighter, which is really cool. He's badass, but he did some American movies. He was in what was that Tarantino movie that went to Japan? Kill Bill. He was in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. So he did all sorts of amazing stuff. Sonny Chiba was really cool. He was awesome. let's get into like the big thing that I think this has to be the comic book news of the week, and it really like made me almost want to like just do a show the day that this like all broke. It's a little bit of a mess. I'm going to try to break some of it down and talk that through. Yes, that's true. Sonny Chiba did play the titular character in Golgo 13, a live action adaptation of what I'm pretty sure is the longest running manga of all time. I'm pretty sure. So yeah. Very cool movie. It takes place in Hong Kong. It's cool. Anyway, so first of all, let's just talk about some of the facts, and then I'm going to talk about some of the speculation and some of my insight into it. But Fables, writer Bill Willingham definitely created that book, and he wrote all the issues. He wrote that. It was originally published through Vertigo for 150 issues. One of the biggest successes to come through Vertigo. That ended back in 2015. But the book returned for a 12-issue series back in 2022. That was supposed to be 12 issues, so that should have been wrapped up by now. But it's been plagued by delays ever since it came back. And fans have rightly been asking, like, why? Well, this week, Bill Willingham explained what the issue is, because so far only 9 of the 12 issues have come out in well over a year. So this week on Thursday, Bill Willingham posted a statement to his Substack newsletter announcing, basically, I'm just spoiling it down, that he doesn't trust DC Comics' current leadership and that he is therefore releasing Fables into the public domain. Let me explain that a little bit more. He said that when he signed his original deals, he knew the DC leadership at the time very well, but that those people have either, moved on or passed away, etc. It's a whole new set of people running things over there. And that he just doesn't like working with them. He thinks that they're always interpreting the contract in ways that only benefit them, and that like they used to like be fair with him, and that he just doesn't feel they're being fair anymore. Although if you have followed Bill Willingham himself since he started this book, he's changed too. I think that's just, I don't know if it factors in here or not, but politically, I would say he seemed to write things from both sides originally in Fables. Like he was fairly neutral. But like he has become super, super, super right wing. He writes for Breitbart. He attended conventions that are like explicitly for like, aimed at right wing audiences. He's taken a lot of super hardcore stances on politics. That's just, and that's his right. But I also wonder, like, has it been just DC Comics that have changed, or could some of it have been him? I don't know. Okay. I don't know. None of us are privy to exactly what's gone on behind closed doors between Bill Willingham and DC Comics. And I think the biggest thing that we're all missing is not even that. It's that none of us know specifically what the contract between them spells out. I'm going to get more into that, actually. I've got some more stuff to talk about that. Here's a quote from that whole press release, and it goes into like a lot of stuff, okay? If I understand the law correctly, and be advised that copyright law is a mess, purposely vague and murky, and no two lawyers, not even those specializing in copyright and trademark law, agree on anything. You have the rights to make your Fables movies and cartoons, and publish your Fables books, and manufacture your Fables toys, and do anything you want with your property because it's your property. He's right that like different lawyers are going to interpret it differently, and we don't know what the contract says between DC and Bill Willingham. But there's a couple things I do want to point out before any of you get too excited about like trying to make Fables. First of all, this is sort of separate from this issue, but all the main characters in Fables are from fiction and are, if not all, like almost all, in the public domain. You know, we're talking about Little Boy Blue and his horn. We're talking about the Big Bad Wolf. We're talking about Snow White. We're talking about like all these characters, right? Pinocchio. Characters that are in the public domain. But what he's saying he's releasing is his interpretation, because you could use something in the public domain. You could make a Sherlock Holmes story, but your Sherlock Holmes story is still your Sherlock Holmes story. Okay. You can use the public domain elements, but once you come up with your interpretation, that's yours. And you do own that. That's what supposedly Bill Willingham owns. And some of the indicia in the comics I'm going to show you does indicate that he has the copyright for it. But my understanding of public domain is that you cannot just declare something to be public domain. It has to do with like one of two things. Either you've passed away and a certain amount of time has passed, in which case that enters the public domain. I'm not going to go into all the specifics there. It's a long time because Disney has been fighting in the courts to extend that longer and longer, how long something's in the public domain before it goes into the public domain. And the other way is if you release something into, you know, some form of media, but you don't properly put the copyright information in there, you can accidentally release things into the mainstream, the public domain. For instance, the original Night of the Living Dead movie forgot to put in the copyright info in the credits, and that movie is in the public domain. I don't know. That's just one example I can think of off the top of my head. I think that it's like over 70 years right now. I think it's over 70 years after their death. Yes, you can. You can declare things to be public domain if it's by the IP owner. Okay. It's just that, like, so there's a little bit more to this. Okay. So this is what Bill Willingham said, that like his contract says that he can't do Fables stuff without DC agreeing to it. But he's saying that since he owns the ideas and everything, he can release it and other people can create like their versions. And I think he's doing this because he definitely has a contract dispute. Okay. He definitely does. There's no question. Now, specifically what that dispute is, we don't know, but he definitely has a dispute going on with DC. He's not happy about maybe how they're licensing it or they're paying royalties. Who knows? But where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought there. I got too animated. It's this coffee. I guess the gist of it is that like we don't know exactly what their contract says, but because he's not getting along with DC, it would be very expensive to fight them in court. He said as much in his newsletter release. I don't think he wants to do that. I don't even know if he could afford to necessarily. He probably could, but who knows? Who knows? I think he's creating like a nuisance for DC. That's what I think. I think he's saying like, I'm going to like throw this out there, let other people sort of fight DC, and maybe DC will just sort of like go like, this is not worth the headache. You can have it all. I don't know. I'm speculating here. Okay. I just want to make that clear. So Bill Willingham is probably not going to go after you. Although then again, what's to say he wouldn't change his mind based on what you created, right? Like he might, I've already said, like, he has his pops. What if you created a version that explicitly disagreed with all of his strong beliefs? He might be well within his rights to change his mind and go after you. I don't know. I don't know that you can't change your mind. Either way, the day after Bill Willingham said this, DC released a statement saying, no, Fables is not public domain. Now, I don't know who's right. I've got some information here, but let me go over some of the facts. So Bill Willingham said on the 14th, it's public domain. DC replied on Friday, the 15th, with a press release saying, that's not so. Here's what they said, basically. This is from DC. The Fables comic books and graphic novels published by DC and the storylines, characters, and the elements therein are owned by DC and protected under the copyright laws of the United States and throughout the world in accordance with applicable law, and are not in the public domain. DC reserves all rights and will take such action as DC deems necessary or appropriate to protect its intellectual property rights. If they even think that they have a case, they literally had no choice but to do this, because part of protecting your intellectual property rights is literally announcing that and making it clear where you stand. Here's the indicia that's published on the bottom of every comic book. This was from one of the final issues of the original run. So we're going back to 2015. It says, published monthly by DC Comics, their address, blah, 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 copyright, Bill Willingham and DC Comics. That's what it starts with. All rights reserved. All characters featured in this issue, the distinctive likenesses thereof, and related elements are trademarks of Bill Willingham. After that, it just talks about Vertigo and DC Comics, etc. So right there, it says that the copyright is joint. Bill Willingham may not have, he does have the trademark for sure, but does he have the copyright? There's also this thing that there were several of these posted back in between 2010 and 2014, when copyright ownership changes between, like, it's assigned to a company or a company assigns it to an individual. That's legally stuff that has to be posted, and so you can look that up. And this one is from back in 2010, where it says that the copyright owner is Bill Willingham. The copyright claimant is Bill Willingham, and the DC is transferring rights to him. However, because we don't see their contract, we don't know exactly what rights they're talking about. It could be for certain characters. It could be rights for a specific project. For instance, if a video game was made, there might be certain rights that are traded between them on something like that. It doesn't mean it's for everything. So it's really tricky to say, but I will say this. Initially, a lot of people were very excited about the idea of Fables going into the public domain. I know I saw Ben Dunn, publisher at Antarctic, get excited. And he was like, we're going to do a Fables anthology. And then about 24 some hours later, he said, I've been advised that might not be the best idea. And he's like, I think I'm going to back off for now until things shake out. And I think that that's the advice I would hand over, is that I don't think it's 100% clear that Bill Willingham absolutely has the full rights and can unilaterally decide that it's in the public domain. DC certainly doesn't think so, and they've got deep pockets. But here's the thing. All of those characters are public domain, and you could come up with your own interpretation. You just couldn't use the ideas of, for instance, Bigby Wolf being a detective and being in a relationship with Snow White. You couldn't use the idea of these fables having escaped their fictional lands and living in modern day New York City. Those are unique ideas that are tricky to contest. I wouldn't recommend fighting DC. I don't think that that's cowardly. I think that that's just smart until we know more, because each of them have something different to say, but we don't know what the contract says. So that's the huge question mark in this whole story, and I doubt we'll ever see the contract. Unless Bill Willingham decides to post something like that publicly, explicitly post his contract, I don't think we can know who owns what. So I'd just be very careful is all I'm saying. I'd be careful. It's definitely been essentially a clusterfuck of a news story, and it's been interesting to follow the back and forth between them. Clearly, Willingham is very upset with DC to do all this, but yeah. I did see some of Once Upon a Time, and I'll be honest, I was stunned that DC never went after that, because it definitely seems to use a lot of the same ideas of, at least, the fictional characters leaving their various worlds and living in modern day America. Now, they weren't living in New York City. They didn't have the same main characters, but the premise was pretty damn similar. I don't know. He's trying to blow it all up. I think so. I really like Fables. I want to add that I loved those 150 issues. Some of the art by Mark Buckingham is gorgeous. The covers by James Jean are incredible, and the story was really like interesting and engaging. I really liked it. I did, but I have no idea where to fall on this. This is just crazy, just crazy. So that was the biggest news, but that's not the only news. Let's keep talking. This looked fun to me. Kevin Eastman said this week that the Ninja Turtles will meet Daredevil one day. Okay, so Daredevil was at least one of the clear inspirations for Ninja Turtles, no question. Specifically, the origin, as well as the Frank Miller stuff with the ninjas. The hand translates to the foot. Daredevil's mentor stick, that's definitely Splinter. Like there are clear parallels. We all know that. So this week, one of the co-creators, Kevin Eastman, was interviewed by comicbook.com. He was promoting Mutant Mayhem, the movie. But he said in there something that was interesting about the Daredevil and the Ninja Turtles meeting. This is part of his quote. He says, "It happens in my mind a lot and often. It's been something that in all sincerity, I believe will happen. But if not, I'll just do it for free and put it out." Great. Get that in a second. He said, "I have a story and I have ideas. And one time I would like to take the opportunity. I would like that opportunity to do it." And just for fun, I put in like two different sequences here. Like this is from Daredevil's first issue with like, this truck full of chemicals going out of control. Young Matt Murdock jumps in the path of the truck to knock an older gentleman out of the way, but was in turn doused with the radioactive chemicals when it crashed. But then this is like that same sequence of events in Ninja Turtles #1, where after the radioactive stuff hits, essentially Matt Murdock, it then goes down into the sewers and covers the turtles. So it basically sort of like took this and was like, and then there were a few seconds afterwards where instead of following Matt Murdock, let's follow the nuclear mutagens stuff, the radioactive mutagens. So anyway, so I they would make a great crossover. The Ninja Turtles are definitely, inspired by stuff like Teen Titans, a teenage hip group at the time. They're definitely inspired by the X-Men with all the mutation stuff. But I still think that the biggest influence was, a lot of the Frank Miller stuff that was popular at the time. Because those three things were very popular comics at the time. And of course they would be influences on Ninja Turtles. Yes, technically, like, the Ninja Turtles has always, like, their origin has always been a play on Daredevil's origin, as though like it gave them both their powers. Anyway, Marvel hasn't really done any big crossovers with other companies much in the last 10 years or so, but if they were going to do one, like, Ninja Turtles, like that just seems like a no-brainer to earn a lot of money on both sides, and Daredevil is just the perfect fit. Just a great fit. I hope it happens one day. And if it doesn't, I love that Kevin Eastman is like, I'll just do it myself as like fanfic or something, but that would be amazing. Alan Moore has asked DC Comics to send his royalties for his comics that he made with them to Black Lives Matter. Let's get into that. So this week, Alan Moore was promoting his book Illuminations, which is a collection of short stories, prose. He was promoting it in an interview with The Telegraph, British publication. And he had this quote: "I didn't mean my experiments with comics to be immediately taken up as something that the whole industry should do. When I was doing things like Watchmen, I was not saying that dark psychopathic characters are really cool, but that does seem to be the message that the industry took for the next 20 years. And then he said, I don't really feel with the recent films that they have stood by what I assumed were their original principles. So I asked for DC Comics to send all of my money from any future TV series or films to Black Lives Matter. Good for him. He doesn't really want to take any of the money for himself. In the past, he's like said, send that to Dave Gibbons, the artist. I don't want to have anything to do with the movies and stuff because I don't endorse them. I think that like saying that is one thing, but to not take the money is another thing. And if he wants to donate it to charity, that's kind of awesome. That's kind of awesome. Let's see. Moore's still the goat. Yep. Moore is a weird guy, but not a bad guy. Alan Moore is a role model. Would have expected the Guardian more than the Telegraph. I don't know. Yeah. Good on you, Mr. Moore. You are one of the good ones. They could be. Some of them. Some of them would be coming from HBO. Yep. A true spectacle of a wizard. Hell yeah, Alan. Great. Go, Alan. Seems like folks think he did a good move. You know? I'm sure he does. I mean, you know, yeah, whatever. Good for him. Good for him. Alan Moore said that he's done everything he felt that he wanted to do in comics. And he did a lot of great stuff, you know? It was not all dark reimaginings and stuff. Like Watchmen was incredibly influential. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is another thing that like takes public domain properties and he remixed it in an interesting way. But if you go back and read some of his Green Lantern and Superman stories, you know, it's just like classic, really cool ideas, really good fiction. And then later, you know, he's doing stuff like Tom Strong and Top 10 and Promethea. He always just had a lot of really interesting ideas. And I'm disappointed that DC kind of keeps going back to that well. But sometimes I don't think it's always just DC as an entity. Like I personally feel that like Jeff Johns is overly influenced potentially because, you know, stuff like his Green Lantern run and Doomsday Clock, etc., all like sort of really built off of Alan Moore ideas. And I wish there were a few more new ideas mixed in. Anyway. That was really cool. Yeah, like he came up with what I forget the musical note, but like he came up with a Green Lantern that can't see color, so he interprets it as sound, and that was an interesting idea. That was an interesting idea. I think he does. I think it was a little bit of a coincidence that it wasn't just Watchmen that came out at the same time. You know, Frank Miller had some similar ideas for Batman, and they were both really well done. So it wasn't that like everybody was trying to do dark and gritty. It's that like two really good projects that happened to be dark and gritty came out at about the same time. And the industry was like, oh, this is really popular. Why is it popular? And they didn't really dig deep enough to look at story structure, character work, to see what the arc was or what's the point of like what we're being told here, you know? And they sort of focused on what I would call the superficial surface level stuff. Yeah. I don't think the V for Vendetta movie is better than the comic, but I would say that it's probably out of like the adaptations of Alan Moore's work, the one that I can enjoy the most. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but it's, yeah. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow? Oh, it's a fantastic comic. That's so good. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow is good. And What Do You Get for the Man Who Has Everything? Two fantastic Superman stories. Just really cool. Anyway. Your fave Alan Moore work is Miracle Man, Marvel Man. I think the one I keep going back to as a comic that I like the most is probably V for Vendetta, but It varies depending on what kind of a mood I'm in and stuff. He's written a lot of stuff that I really like. A lot. Moving on. The director of Aquaman 2 has disputed that they had tons of big reshoots. That's been the rumor for a while. So there have been reports since July. I want to say the Hollywood Reporter had them initially, that Aquaman 2 was going back for all sorts of extensive reshoots, which is usually the sign of a problem. This week, James Wan, the director, told Entertainment Weekly that the reshoots were not because of extensive problems, but the piecemeal schedule of the actors. It's possible. He said, "We have big actors in this movie, and everyone's schedule is really hard. So we had to break up our shooting schedule into sections. We'll shoot a bit here now because this actor's available, and then we'll do another shoot now because this guy's available." People are like, oh, they're doing a bunch of different shoots. No, if we actually combine them all together, it's actually not that many number of days at all. We'll have to wait and see. I definitely am not dreading Aquaman 2 the same way I was The Flash, and The Flash was a disappointment. Whereas Aquaman, that movie, I went in with like no or low expectations, and it was bonkers and crazy, but I kind of enjoyed it for what it was. It was very over the top in a lot of ways. But you know what? James Wan generally makes good movies, in my opinion. It's not that I love everything, but his stuff with like from Saw to Fast and Furious to The Conjuring to Aquaman, he generally makes pretty solid movies. We'll see. I believe this is the final movie that they made that was part of, their original DC universe before like everything gets rebooted. I believe this is the last one. But you know what? I mean, if it's insanely popular, I'm sure they'll find a way to like continue it. We'll see. I don't know that it will be though. It was not very good, was it? And you know what? I think that actor is actually pretty decent too. Andy Muschietti. He made that movie Mama, which I was surprised with. The first It movie was great. The second one was okay. It was like not as good as the first one, but not a disaster. So I expected more out of him when he did Flash, but oh yeah, Malignant is so bonkers over the top. But I have to admit that the crazy twist at a certain point in it, I'm not going to give it away, but it is an over-the-top horror movie. It's insane. When you get to the twist, oh my God, my wife and I were like howling laughing, but we were like, oh my God, I can't believe this movie went there. It was very enjoyable for what it was. You're like, okay, this is schlock, but it's still well-made schlock. It hangs together. It makes sense. It's schlocky. But it was fun. It was fun. Yeah. Okay. A lot of people saying that they loved Malignant. Yeah. Did she really? I did not really see the exact twist coming. It was just too weird. Anyway. Oh, this is bonkers but fun. A new spider genus has been named after Venom. For real. So, this spider was discovered in Tasmania. Of course it was. Like, what in Australia does not exist to just explicitly kill humans? I mean, it's nothing but scorpions and spiders and snakes. And yet I still want to visit it. But boy, does everything there seem to want to kill you. So the scientists discovered this spider that's on the right here, and they named it after Tom Hardy and the Marvel character that he plays, Venom. The real name, the real scientific classification is Venomius tomhardii. It really is. Why? Scientists felt that these black spots on the back reminded them of Venom's head. I don't exactly see what they're talking about, but I did think that was funny and charming. Like a bunch of nerds were like, we're going to name this after Venom. And we're going to throw in Tom Hardy on top of that. It's pronounced genus. Okay, sorry. I didn't study any of that. Oops. Thank you. I hope I can find a Tom Hardy. I don't know if it's poisonous or anything. The only thing I knew is like it spins its web in a unique way. So if you want to know more, you could like look up Venomius Tom Hardy and find out some more about this spider, which it's not like it just came into existence, but has just been discovered and classified. So I think that's just funny. Todd McFarlane should probably get a couple bucks off of this. I don't think you actually get any money for naming a spider. Topher Grace screams at the injustice. I guess you're right, but you know what? Like, hey, if we're gonna go back to who played Venom first, there had to have been a voice actor on that '90s Spider-Man cartoon, right? Yeah, I wouldn't need it. I agree. Not a good idea. Travel vlog. I want pictures of this spider, man. All I know is that this spider loves to eat chocolate. Now that's a deep pull. Moving on. Now you guys know about the new spider named after Venom. J.H. Williams III. Fantastic artist. Worked on some amazing books. Promethea, we were talking about earlier. Batwoman. Some great stuff. Great stuff. Well, got a very new experimental type of project I thought I'd talk about. So J.H. Williams III is launching a new music and art project with hip-hop DJ and producer Jay Zotos called The Sound and Paint Men. Okay. The first release, it's called Resonant Voyage. It's a what's an EP? Extended. What's EP stand for again? All of a sudden I forget. What's P? It's not album. I forget what EP stands for all of a sudden. Anyway, oh yeah, also J.H. Williams did Sandman Overtures, if you guys ever read that. That was a pretty acclaimed book. Extended play. Thanks, everybody. Extended play. Got it. Yes. Extended play. Means a full album. Combining Zotis's music with Williams striking covers for each of the songs in the album, with each piece of art specifically tying to the creative process of each song. The creative process, not necessarily the song itself. This is just a tribute. They say that like if you download the song when it comes out, you'd get to also download the artwork. So that's kind of cool. The project was inspired, tying it back to comics. Zotos was in love with an image from J.H. Williams III's book Echolands. There was this cosmic scene of space, and it just really, I guess, inspired the DJ to want to go down this path. And they said that they basically would just sort of like try to inspire each other back and forth, like talk about like what they want to do with the song. J.H. Williams would create some artwork. That artwork would like sort of like fine tune where the song was going. Finished song gets the finished artwork. It sounds interesting. Sounds interesting. I don't know what the status is with Echolands. I don't know. That's a good song. Anyway, sort of a weird thing. Not technically a comic book, but a comic book artist whose comic book art for Echolands inspired an album, and they did the art for it. You know, music and comic book artists have a lot of ties. There are lots of comic book artists who have done album covers for various EPs. The first thing that comes to mind that's sort of similar to this is Bill Sienkiewicz did a cool painted cover for one of Kid Cudi's albums. I think it was Man on the Moon, if I'm remembering right. And by the way, my understanding is Kid Cudi is working on a comic book, but we'll talk more about that once it gets announced. Yeah, I wish I knew. I'm sorry, I don't know when Echolands is coming back. Best impression of Todd McFarlane being overly excited about eating a pretzel dog. I guess I could try. Well, the thing about hot dogs is, you know, you got this pretzel in there, man, and you got to just sort of get the salty stuff with the sweet stuff, and that way, you know, you got your own pretzel dog. And I'm like, cool. Kind of reminds me of a baseball bat. By the way, I played baseball. I don't know where I'm going. But yeah, comics and comics and music have plenty of crossover stuff. No. That's something else. I do know that he's doing something for Star Trek. I know what you're talking about there. I have the inside scoop. Okay. Kid Cudi likes sci-fi stuff. I'm talking about something aside from his Star Trek collaboration. Aside from that. Yes. Yeah, Andy Samberg has a comic coming out with Rick Remender called Holy Roller. I'll try to have Rick show up on this show for a quick interview to talk about that, okay? Nailed it. I nailed the impression. Thank you. When did Todd McFarlane join the show? Yep, follow the leader art. I'm also doing a cover for the new Cudi comic project. Okay, so I did not hear about this from Jim. Jim, can you just like confirm that you did not tell me anything? Like, I don't want to sound like I'm getting in trouble. And I'm not saying what the project is, but we do know now that there's, separate from the Star Trek stuff, Kid Cudi is doing a comic project. Kid Cudi is very creative. I like his music. I thought he was absolutely hilarious on comedy Bang Bang, and he's a good actor. Did you see him in X? He was really cool in that. Kid Cudi is working on a Pace Pop Pete comic. All right, never mind. He's dead to me. He's dead to me. I know nothing, you guys. There we go. Good. Did you see the Korn video that was directed by Todd McFarlane? I do sort of remember that. Yeah, I do remember that. Anyway. Yeah, we say no more about Kid Cudi, but he's a talent. He's just tons of great talent. This I'm including for the nostalgia. I wouldn't say that I was ever a massive fan of Power Pack, but I do find Power Pack charming, and I do feel that it fits a bit of a niche in that, like, there are plenty of sort of teen teams in comics. You know, that's a trope, teen teams, but not too many kid superheroes, literally kids. But that's what Power Pack was. Well, the original creators are coming back to work on Power Pack, and that's kind of fun too. So, January, Power Pack is going to return for 5 issues in honor of the 40th anniversary of the comic. And the original writer and artist are going to both work on it. Louise Simonson, June Brigman. Really talented creators. I think Wheezy, Louise, is great. I loved her work on X Factor, especially. That was something that really just, yeah, it hit the sweet spot for me. But there's been a lot of stuff that she's done that I liked. And June Brigman had a really charming, sort of grounded style. And here's what she could do well. June actually draws these kids to look like kids, not just like adults with like a small body or something like that. You know, really did a good job. So they were both a good fit. This is going to be set back in their original sort of earlier continuity, like real early on when they get their powers. And if you don't know, the Power Pack, like, it's 4 siblings that get superpowers from a dying alien, and they sort of have to keep Earth safe from these aliens called snarks. I'm really simplifying everything, but yeah. Let's see. And yeah, I guess that's it. But I just thought it was charming to think that they're coming back. I have not read Gideon Falls, I'm afraid. Sorry. Franklin Richards was basically the 5th member of Power Pack. They were all best friends. But the Power Pack met just about everybody in the Marvel Universe. They even made Frank Castle soften up. Frank Castle liked them. So, yeah. Yeah, one of the interesting things is that they did switch their powers a few times. So while This is sort of like what we're seeing here is sort of like the default. There was Katie Power, Light Speed. Wait, was it Katie? Well, there was Light Speed, Energizer, Mass Master, and Zero G. So those are their superhero names. I can't remember all their names. By the way, here's a weird little piece of something. I don't know what to say. I made an episode once on Comic Tropes talking about the Power Pack pilot, which was never picked up. It's a really sort of weird, low budget thing. The actress who played the youngest Power Pack kid reached out to me on social media at one point, and she's become a singer. She's grew up, didn't do acting, did music, and she was just sort of like, like, I'm thinking about like maybe I should start going to some conventions. Do you think like people would know? And it was interesting. She seems like a really charming and talented lady, to be honest. I don't know if they're soliciting it yet. Marvel just announced this past week, so I haven't seen I don't think it's in what do you call it, the previews yet, but it'll come out in January. Kite Man is getting a TV show. Kite Man, of all people. Basically, Kite Man had a small resurgence in the comics when Tom King was writing Batman. He just sort of would have Kite Man come in and like steal some stuff and go like, hell yeah. And then when they created the Harley Quinn animated show, they added Kite Man as a bit of like a supporting character. And he would just always say he's very overconfident in his abilities, which is basically just that he has a hang glider, essentially. And he just, hell yeah. Yeah, everybody's just saying like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I got a kick out of this, but yeah, he's getting his own TV show spinning off of the HBO Max Harley Quinn animated show. It's definitely like, an R-rated show in terms of the violence and language that they use, but I think it's actually a pretty funny show. What will this show be about? Kite Man and his new girlfriend, Golden Glider, usually a Flash villain, take their relationship to the next level by opening a bar in the shadow of Lex Luthor's Legion of Doom. Nobody said serving cold ones to the most dangerous rogues outside of Arkham Asylum would be easy, but sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name and how to hide a body. And they released a trailer this week. So if you like it, if you've liked Harley Quinn, I would recommend looking up the trailer. If you just like offbeat, weird things that like, go in silly directions, it's good. Venture Brothers didn't get canned, actually. Like, it just ended on its own terms. Yes, Golden Glider is, in the comics, Captain Cold's sister. Yes, absolutely. Yes, Paste Pot Pete is a mantle inherited through the generations. I don't know either, but I assume you can name some after Golden Glider as well. I thought that was funny. The order numbers for Transformers are massive. Who knew that Transformers had this much of an audience? I guess we sort of should have known because they've been still making movies. What have they made? 7 live action movies? So obviously there is an audience for Transformers that's bigger than most licensed or toy properties, but this is big. This comes from Bleeding Cool. They said that they hear that Transformers #1 has orders over 153,000 copies. Those are really good numbers. Yes, there was this weird period of time in the 90s and some of the golden age where things could get up close to 1 million or so. But even then, that was pretty rare. Usually a few 100,000 is pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. This is a record for any Hasbro licensed book, because they've got other things like My Little Pony and G.I. Joe and stuff. It's also a record for any first issue by Skybound, unless you sort of add up all the reprints for The Walking Dead, which, but that's reprints and stuff, like maybe this will get reprints for all we know. This was something interesting that Bleeding Cool noted. The retailer variants only accounted for less than 20% of the overall orders. Variants are very popular with stores these days. It's something that they can say is a little bit more unique than just getting the comic. So less than 20% for an issue number one is not huge, actually. That's on the smaller side these days for an issue number one. And there were no ratio variants above 1 out of every 100. Sometimes, comic stores are trying to really inflate their numbers, and they say, like, you'll get one variant for every 1,000 copies you order. That's for like really chains of stores to get like 1 or 2 like super rare things. But yeah. Daniel Warren Johnson's audience might be bigger than Transformers. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I want it to be true. I love Daniel Warren Johnson. I think he's definitely still growing. I think that Transformers does have a lot of name recognition. I think that adding Daniel Warren Johnson to have like a really great artist and writer shows that it's not just a product being cranked out. And I'm not saying that that's ever something that's been done before, but I do think he has enough of a name that it gives it some prestige. And I think that it helps that it was off of the market for a while and that it's getting a fresh start. I think that these are all things that should help. Let's see. Since it's a Daniel Warren Johnson story, there's going to be tons of over-the-top action. Then suddenly the story will make you wail like a 3-year-old. Hasn't been announced how long he's on it, but he's still working on it now, and he's started working on this like, a long time ago. So he told me that he was working on this back around October of last year at the New York Comic Con. So he's been working on this for about a year. So anyway, yeah, like he's been working on it for a while. Let's see. He said, I didn't hear about this. James is saying he said he was drawing the first 6 issues, and then after that he said he might be sticking around as the writer. I hope he does. He's got an idea for it anyway. And I won't say anything about it, but I got an advanced reader copy, and it's great. It's great. I think it'll like end up doing very well for anybody that tries it out. I think people will enjoy it. I really do. On a Friday live stream. I do try to watch as many of those Friday with D-Dubs as I can, but I guess I didn't catch that. No. I said that I wouldn't. Yep. All I can say is I do think it's good. I do think it's good. The Marvel VFX workers have voted unanimously to unionize. This is a big step. This is very new. So Marvel visual effects workers unanimously voted in favor of unionizing with the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, IATSE, in an election held by the National Labor Relations Board, and they announced that this past Wednesday. This hasn't been done before, just to be clear. It's the first time a VFX unit has voted to unionize with IATSE. Wow. First time. So what does this mean? Well, the next step is that now that they voted, they are a union, or in the union, I should say. And the next step is that they get to collectively bargain with Marvel. And basically the reason for forming this was, better pay, but I think also a big part of it is better hours. It's been definitely talked about how VFX workers throughout Hollywood are constantly sort of given really tough last-minute deadlines and stuff. I don't think that this should really change much of what we see, with one exception. I think it's going to simply force studios to budget a little bit more time for their production. I think that that's all it is. And basically, if you're asking, if you do get under the gun, even after like budgeting for more time for this and everything, so that people don't, can have weekends and evenings off, that you say that like, okay, God forbid we're under the gun and we really feel that we need to get like movie X out, that means that we are obligated to pay you, like X overtime wages or something like that, like that to make it right. I think that this is a good step, honestly, for the industry in general. I really do. I think that, like, we've gotten to a point where digital effects are very commonplace. These people are artists that can do some incredible things. And a lot of times, if we see bad effects in a movie, it's not because the special effects people on it are untalented. It's that they didn't have enough time. That's all it is. And what happens is the industry relies on these different effects houses to bid against each other to, like, because the studio wants to go with the most cost efficient option. And that ends up like being like, like we'll say Studio ABC ends up with the right to do the special effects for Captain America 67, not 69. What they often do is now they go, oh, you know what? In order to make this work, we normally would have like 20 people working on this, but if we hire 20 people, like, we don't get our money back, so we can only have like 12 people work on this. And that means those 12 people have to like work extra hard to hit a deadline. It's pretty broken. It's pretty broken. So we'll see. We'll see. The writers' strike, the writers and producers are having another, or I should say, sorry, the writers and the studios are having another sit-down negotiating meeting on Wednesday. So, who knows? There you go. I think overall it should be a good thing. I'm not in favor. I don't need a movie built on people getting exploited terribly. That doesn't make me feel good. There's a lot of money to go around in these things. I think that these people can be paid fairly. Here's the big news of the week. Deathstalker. Deathstalker, that movie from 1983 that you're all thinking of right now with fond memories. You're going, oh yeah, Deathstalker. My favorite movie. It's getting a new comic with the help of Slash from Guns N' Roses. None of this makes sense so far. I dig for the news. I dig for these news people. Yes, let's get into it. So, by the way, this is like the trade dress for it. It's got the Boris Vallejo painting for the movie featuring Deathstalker against an ogre. And look at, it says on the side, Slash presents Deathstalker. So, the 1983 Roger Corman fantasy movie is coming back in comics form, Bart. Nope, not the Daredevil villain. Yes. Deathstalker, 1983. Roger Corman is definitely known as, like, king of like low budget movies. That doesn't always mean that they are bad. He has made some good movies. Definitely has. Jim just breaking in before I can even get all the news out, saying that, just so controversial here, saying that Deathstalker 2 is the superior movie. I don't know, folks. Jim, you're going to divide the population of America with these arguments. I just got such a kick out of this happening. So Tim Seeley is writing it. Tim's talented. Jim Terry is drawing it. Jim has done some stuff, I think, both with Tim and with Vault Comics. I'm not overly familiar with Jim's artwork, I have to admit, but cool. So that's a good team. And apparently Slash also must have some sort of ownership right to this, because it's saying that he's presenting it, and he released this statement. This was a statement he released. It's from Slash, from Guns N' Roses, folks. I mean, he's done stuff other than Guns N' Roses. Slash is a great guitarist. Let me just make that clear. He really is. He says, our Deathstalker is a reimagining of that fine specimen of 80s sword and sorcery. With fantasy, you get a little of everything. Horror, magic, sex, Thrills, blood, guts, swords, and weirdness. You know, all those things you can't look away from. And that's what we're bringing. And yeah, if you haven't seen it, it was a cult hit. It made money. I think that they made it for less than $500,000 in '83, which was a decent sized budget for that era. Decent enough. And it probably made like over 10 or $11 million. So it was profitable. That's what Roger Corman specialized in. Yeah, swords and sorcery movie. And just to be clear, the cheapest special effect of all. Lots and lots of boobs. Lots of girls showing boobs. Oh, I just remembered. Oh, this is so dark. One of the main women in it was that actress who she was killed. She was shot in the face by that music producer. Who was that famous Phil Spector? I just remembered that. I haven't thought about that just came to me. I forget the lady's name right now. Maybe somebody can look it up, but like she, yeah, the lady that Phil Spector killed, she was in it. Oh, that's sad. Just crazy. Lana Clarkson. Thank you, ChemDog. Yeah, Lana Clarkson. I want to actually say her name. We talked a little earlier that Dynamite was doing Fire and Ice. I think that Fire and Ice has a lot more comic book connections with guys like Frank Frazetta and Roy. What's his name? Stanley's protege, Roy Thomas. Anyway, but Deathstalker was sort of from that era. Yeah, there was Conan, there was Deathstalker, there was what was that one low budget one of the guy that could talk to animals? And it was just he had a pair of ferrets. That was his main claim to fame because ferrets are very inexpensive. Roy Thomas, yeah. Beastmaster. Beastmaster. Now, Beastmaster is worse than Deathstalker, just for the record, in my opinion. Maybe some of you guys really liked it. The Italian ripoffs, yeah. The ferrets, yeah. They made a bunch of I feel like I know that there was 2 Deathstalker movies, but I feel like there were something like 4 Beastmaster movies. I could be wrong, but I feel like there were more than 2. There could have been. Was that their names? Because I don't remember that. Krull. Are you talking about Krull? Or are you talking about? Wasn't there one that was called Oh, I'm thinking of Kull the Conqueror. Krull was the one with that glaive with all the knives, right? The spinning sort of shuriken. There are 4 Deathstalker movies. 4? Oh, so I've got it wrong? Oh my God. 4 Deathstalker films? What? Oh my goodness. Yeah, Krull had the throwing glaive. For a minute, I was thinking of Kull the Conqueror by Robert E. Howard, the guy that did Conan. Right. Mark Singer. Huh. Mark. What didn't. I could be wrong here. I could be confusing Mark Singer with this, but does anybody remember Mark Pillows? He played the bad guy in Superman 4. Didn't he play some sort of a sword and sorcery guy too? I could be wrong. Interesting. Boy, this would be I think I said this last week. If I wasn't doing a comic book show, I would love to do yet another YouTube show about bad movies. And I would just have so much fun going guess what? This month we're watching all 4 Deathstalker movies and doing an episode about each one. Oh yeah, The Hunter from the Future was based on an Argentinian comic. The comic had to be better. Mark Pillows was in V, the series. Was that what it was? Hard to remember. Anyway, guys, the 1980s gave us a lot of sword and sorcery movies. I don't know why. It was such a big thing, but because they were very cheap. Why not do an occasional bad movie episode for fun or a live watch party? I might do a live watch party for my patrons at some point. Yeah, that could be fun. A Boy and His Dog. Oh my God, does that have the worst like final joke? It's so dark and like honestly kind of misogynist. Like basically like the hero. I'm just going to spoil a movie for you guys. Okay. I'm going to spoil a movie called A Boy and His Dog, because if you haven't seen it yet, you're probably not going to see it. The main character is in like this post-apocalyptic world, and he eats his love interest, and like his talking dog says, well, she always said she had good taste. And they're like, ha, 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 ha. And you're like, you just ate the girl you were into. It's pretty dark, right? Pretty dark. Yes, it was based on Harlan Ellison, something or other. Starring Don Johnson. That's right. I'm going dark tonight. I'm sorry, folks. Let's go on to something else. Apparently, it seems like Tim Burton wasn't too happy with how the Flash movie used his versions of Batman and Superman. Let me say it in his words, and we'll see if I'm getting that right. So, what happened was Tim Burton was interviewed this week by the British Film Institute about his career. That's nice. And in it, he discussed one thing that was on the positive side. He said that like his Batman movies and even his unrealized Superman movie that was going to star Nicolas Cage, that they never really leave him. That like he talked about it as though he's kind of, no matter what, like proud of what he did, and that like the work you do, no matter how it's accepted, etc., like it stays with you, and that's positive. But then he continued. He said, but it also goes into another AI thing. And this is why I think I'm over it with the studio. They can take what you did, Batman or whatever, and culturally misappropriate it, or whatever you want to call it. Even though you're a slave of Disney or Warner Brothers, they can do whatever they want. So in my latter years of life, I'm in quiet revolt against all this. Yeah. Oh, I know he hasn't made every movie has been great, but he's made a lot of good movies. Yeah, he's dumping on a movie that he wasn't involved in, but it was weird. Like the Flash, if they want to use Michael Keaton's Batman, fine. It works okay. I'm not too upset about that. The whole thing of acting like seeing Nicolas Cage as Superman was some sort of fan service, when like that's a really small portion of even comic book readers of us that know that was almost a thing, because it wasn't actually a movie. Like some of us know that story, of course, but the general public didn't. Like, think of how many people saw that movie, and you've got to assume like more than 95% were like, the hell? Why is Nicolas Cage in this as Superman, and why is he completely digital? Like, it made that was such a weird choice. Like for because that was designed to be fan service, but like fan service for who? Like most people probably had no idea what that was. That moment, they're going like, "What did I miss a Nicolas Cage Superman movie?" Yeah, exactly. Some of us know it because we listen to Kevin Smith and stuff. And obviously, if you're watching this show, you're fairly plugged into comics and probably some comics culture and stuff. But there's just no way most people understood what that was. Like, I think it would have made a lot more sense right there to have, say, a cameo by the TV Flash, right? I'm only just like, this is just like, of course it would. People know what that is, at least, even if they haven't watched it. Like, it's on, like, now. So like people would be like, oh, cool, look at that. Like, that's the TV Flash. That's a fun fan service bit. It's very strange to include him. So I get why, like, Tim Burton is like, it's kind of like upsetting, because he was saying like, that you feel good about this work because you put hard work into it, and however it came out, however it's accepted, you were trying to do something good and creative and stuff, and it stays with you. And then, for it to just sort of get used like this as like a throwaway fan service gag, I could see that being upsetting. I really could. Anyway. Boy, I look at this and this looks weird. This image of Nick Cage Superman. The chest hair here. The long hair. And it looks like, like it just doesn't look real. It's such an uncanny valley thing. Oh, it's just a weird choice. Weird choice. What else we got? This is the last piece of news I have tonight. Rob Liefeld redid his Captain America pinup. You've probably seen this before if you're into comics, but he did a somewhat infamous version of Captain America, the Steve Rogers, and now he's drawn Sam Wilson as Captain America in the same pose. I would argue that it's better. I will also argue there are still some of the same underlying problems. So he posted a variant cover for the upcoming Captain America #1 by J. Michael Straczynski and Jesus Saiz that homages his infamous Heroes Reborn pinup for Captain America. And basically the old Captain America image had his chest out to like here. But here's the overall problem is that just my opinion, okay? Rob Liefeld's a much more successful artist than I will ever be. So who am I to critique? Rob excited me when I was young, so I don't want to just bag on him. But here's what I'm thinking is the problem is I think he wanted to do both a profile sort of shot where you're seeing like primarily like his shoulder muscles and like, his head here. But he also sort of wanted to give a 3/4 view of the overall torso. And I think that this is like mixing two perspectives together. But I'm going to explain why I think it happened, okay? At the same time, this is the center, right? This is like the divide between his pectorals. But just look at where his like shoulder harness is going. Like on this side, because it's mostly profile, it sort of ends where the shoulder is connecting to the pectoral. But over here, it's like right in the middle of the left pectoral. And that sort of shows why like the perspective is off, in my opinion. Liefeld did acknowledge what's going on here, though. And I do think it's a little better than it used to be. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you the old art in a second. He said, had to get something off my chest. Cool. He's got a sense of humor about it. Kudos, Rob. Sincerely, kudos. The guy knows how to sell a project. People know this. People buy things that they know. So this on the right is what his original Captain America looked like. And look at how far out that chest goes versus where the neck is. And this is somebody interpreting that. But the problem is if I could somehow like block this much of it out, like the 3/4 view of the chest, then yeah, his neck should be here just over his shoulder if we're looking at it. But the chest should be cut off more like here, and we shouldn't see too much. But we're seeing the middle of it, which means the center line should go up here, and the head should be more over here to the right. So there they are side by side. And you can see he toned it down. So it's not as egregious. When I look at like Sam Wilson, his head is a lot closer to being centered. And at the same time, if we follow this middle pectoral line, it still sort of ends up to the middle of his neck is still on the right side of his body, in my opinion. But here's one last thing that I want to talk about is what I think he was going for. And some people have analyzed this. People think that this is the reference photo that he might have been like basing his idea off of. Arnold Schwarzenegger is in profile essentially, and he's flexing. But what's happening here is a photo is different than real life. Arnold was huge at this point, and his bicep is right behind his left pectoral, and it's pushing it up and out. But that wouldn't have necessarily looked right, and he didn't draw the arm crossing across his abdomen to push this out. But I think that that's what he was going for. Instead, like, the arm is going straight down on both sides, and it would change because you move your chest. I guess I don't have the physique to do it. When you say you feel like he did this on purpose to mess with the haters, are you talking about the new version, or are you talking about the original version? Because I don't think the original was intentional. I think the new one is. I do. I think the new one is intentional. Arnold has a normal sized head. I think that is true. That's an interesting analysis. That's what I think he was going for. And other people have said that too, obviously. So, it's close to almost being right in a way from a certain point of view. From a certain point of view, it's almost right. I feel like I missed something I was trying to... I can't find it now. Sorry. But thank you for taking time to look at this with me. Again, like, it just kind of cracks me up. Like, I think that they should have taken this head and moved it over here to the left of this image. That's what I think would have been nice. Let's talk about some of the comics that came out this week. Let me turn on my camera here. Okay, and we will look at some comics that came out this week because there are some interesting ones. I'm going to close that. Hi, it's just me. And we will add an extra camera. I zoomed in too far. Hold on. There we go. And then we'll add it to the stage and center it up like that. Actually, that's still probably too zoomed in, isn't it? Is that better? I think that's better. Let's start with this. There's a new Stan Lee biography that came out this week by Tom Scioli. He had a really interesting Jack Kirby bio, and he's done some really out there stuff, like, sort of a steampunk take on GoBots. He had an absolutely bonkers Transformers versus G.I. Joe. This is basically just based on interviews and other Stan Lee biographies. And it's sort of like each page is a different moment in time. There's no clear through line necessarily. It's just telling you real stories from Stan's past. There's really nothing that's like made up other than sort of some of the dialogue, of course. I think it's interesting, but it's also, I would say that there's not a whole lot of Tom like doing stuff like panel to panel sequential storytelling wise, because it jumps all about in time, and it rarely sort of moves through an environment or anything. It's just like there's a scene, like talking at a party. There's a scene of him at work, things like that. It's all just like they're all individual scenes each page. Like this is the birth of his daughter or something, and we'll just jump ahead and like this is him giving a speech at a college. It has lots of interesting stories. Stan Lee lived an interesting life. What does it do in terms of like how does it present Stan Lee? I would say it's a very balanced take on him. I would honestly say it is not the most flattering bio you're going to read about Stan Lee, and that's fair. But it also doesn't damn him to hell. Okay, it does give him credit for certain things. Yeah, I see what you guys are talking about, that there's a whole lot of words. I didn't feel like I read it pretty fast, to be clear, because it's mostly dialogue as compared to, some sort of like, flowery prose or anything. Like this is dialogue. It's how people talk. So it's very casual. It's relaxed. I didn't learn anything from this that I didn't already know. I will admit that. I didn't learn anything new, but I have also read several biographies, watched a documentary or two, etc. And it's a little sad. It's a little sad. You can see that, like, Stan kind of wanted more. I think he wanted to be like thought of as a better writer than, comic books. But I think that that's also a product of like the era that they were growing up in. Some of his work probably elevated comics a little bit. He does take more credit than he deserves, but Stan legit seemed to have the belief that the writer that comes up with an idea is the creator. Even though he was sometimes, giving very like loose plots, he felt that, and it is considered that when he compares it to other things that I think he liked, movies and TV. The writer is given credit for who that character is. They'll usually get to, like, the head writer is usually the executive producer or something like that, Scioli's interviews on Cartoonist Kayfabe talked about using the format to make the large amounts of text as quickly readable as possible. It does read fairly quickly. There is a lot of text. This covers literally his whole life. Well, I guess it starts with him as a very small boy, so like not his birth per se, but it does cover him. It does go all the way to his last day, and it starts with him as a young toddler. Okay, so it covers his entire life, everything he did. If you haven't read one before, this is a very readable summary of all the things that he did. You will know most of the important, if not all of the important moments of Stan's life by reading this. And it is a pretty casual read. I do recommend it. I would just say that, like, I know Tom is capable of, like, sometimes doing more exciting sort of like action and stuff, but this is somebody's real life. But like a lot of the shots are obviously just sort of like medium distance, sometimes close up, but like, like pretty much even. Like there's not like lots of variation in like what angle things are at. Does that make sense? I think that some of that could have made it a little more interesting potentially, but maybe it's a product of how much text he really had to include to make this make sense. Here's my pick of the week, which I was not expecting it to be. Although I've been enjoying Danger Street, this is my pick. Even if you haven't read this whole story, you can read this one issue and you'll get a full story. And it's really interesting. Forget everything else that of what Danger Street is about. In this issue, it's just two men fighting to the death. They each have a goal. They each need to get past the other guy. This guy's called Manhunter. This guy's called Assassin. Okay? They don't just have a fight the whole issue. They also debate why they fight. And it's philosophical. And you know what this reminded me of, honestly? Waiting for Godot. I know that that's a deep pull, but like at least for a comic book. But it is people like literally debating their individual philosophies of why they're fighting, what it would take for them to count the fight as a win, what it would take to beat the other. And there is still some action and stuff like that, but they also do have a parlay where they just pause and talk to each other. And you can tell, even though they don't say it in so many words, that they sincerely respect each other. You'd think this is too much talking for like a whole issue of a fight, right? But look, this is very intentional, all of it. The art by Jorge Fornes and the story by Tom King. Every single page is the same grid, even during the fights and during the debates. It's all a grid. There's no moment that's like necessarily more important than another. It's all about moving the story at a consistent pace and having them debate what their lives are, how they became killers, and what the odds are that they could beat the other. Like basically Assassin says, look, I'm protecting the life of a guy. I can win in one of three ways, or I can win in two out of the three ways. He's like, there are three outcomes. You kill me, that means you win. I kill you, that means I win. Or we kill each other, but that means I've also protected the guy I'm hired to protect. And so I've got like a 2/3 chance, 2/3 outcome of winning. And Manhunter's like, that's not how I see it. You know, how can you call both of us dying? How can you call that a win for yourself? And he's like, like a man can outlive his life with his reputation, or he can leave money for his family. And Manhunter's like, well, men like us, we don't have family. Let's be honest. And he's like, you're right. I don't. It's really interesting, guys. I'm not kidding. I don't think I'm overstating it either. This is issue 9 of Danger Street. And even if you haven't read the rest of the story, it doesn't matter. This is a single self-contained issue of 2 guys, incredibly evenly matched, trying to outthink one another with this debate. They're so skilled. You just sort of have to take that as a given in this comic. They're so skilled that they're really sort of trying to play mind games with each other in terms of like bringing the other person's philosophy around to their perspective. Or are they just trying to distract the other guy by like having him think about something else? It's working on several different levels. It really is interesting. Seems interesting. It is. It's really interesting. I think I'll pick up Danger Street in trade for sure. You won't go wrong with that, but this is the best issue so far, in my opinion. Wow, it really made an impression on you. It did. I was expecting an interesting issue. Instead, it got I just didn't expect it to be so deep. I just didn't. Interesting to see this deliberate take on a fight. It is very deliberate. Like because every single panel is the same size uniformly, you really read it as like a moment-to-moment thing. It creates a sense of moving things forward at a very even pace. Like you can follow each moment very, very cleanly. Yeah, it's you know what? There's something to that, actually, what you just said, especially like Inglourious Bastards. As far as Tarantino movies go, Inglourious Bastards has several scenes where people are really just sort of like trying to use the conversation to ultimately unearth something about the other person. And that's what this is. That's what's going on here. I really recommend it. I really do. This was my pick of the week, which means I'm not going to spend too much time on the rest of the stuff if this was my pick of the week, because nothing's going to quite hit that. But I did find this very fun. Met Cadets issue 2. This is going to be a Netflix animated series very soon. It involves, really young people in mech suits and space and aliens, and a government that does not seem to have the cadets' best interests at heart. Very likable characters, very readable, cool, like action. It's fun. It's not dumb. It's not. It involves potentially reanalyzing some ideals. I did find a couple of the pages a little confusing to follow, storytelling wise. For instance, okay, the cadets are out of their mech suits right here, okay? And they've got this small alien that they've met. They don't understand him, but they're trying to help him. And then there's this huge mech here, projecting something. See, they're all down here looking up. I don't know where this came from. I was a little confused at that moment. But anyway, it's fun. It's fun. I'm glad I picked it up. Oh, it's already on Netflix? Ooh, I'll have to try to carve out some time. I don't know when I'm going to have that anytime soon, since I'm doing... Yeah. Thanks for letting me know, EJ. I didn't realize it was already out. The latest issue of Hulk is out, and this is a very fun run where all you need to know is there's some huge ancient evil that is aiming other monsters at the Hulk. So all that means is that we've got a good premise to have Hulk fight monsters constantly. In this one, he goes up against Man-Thing, Hulk versus a swamp monster, and normally Nick Klein is the main artist. He did the cover for this, but this was definitely a fill-in issue by a guy that EJ and I both know online, at least like his work, Travel Foreman. Travel is a very talented artist, can work very fast. I suspect he was asked to do this fill-in fairly late in the game because Travel usually has a good amount of detail in what he draws. He thinks that through. Like when I saw like an establishing shot like this here, I was like, that wall is pretty bare for a Travel Foreman. So I got the sense that he was probably asked to do this pretty fast. But the artwork is still solid, especially like, he does have time to deal with the fight scene stuff. He makes Man-Thing look cool. Whatever knows fear burns at the touch of Man-Thing. He takes Bruce Banner and he pulls him into himself. But of course, that just makes him turn into the Hulk and something really cool happens. But I'm not going to give it all away. It's fun. It's very fun. I love where this is going. I know Travel Foreman from his New 52 Animal Man work. That stuff with Jeff Lemire was really solid. Absolutely. But you should really see Travel when he's not doing work for hire for Marvel or DC. Like when he does his own stuff, some of the best illustration I've seen out there. He's so talented. It's ridiculous how talented he is. I think he's usually, he just takes sort of fill-in gigs to pay the bills. That's what I think. I know that like the main book he wanted to do was X-Men, and it just hasn't happened. So I don't know. If Marvel was smart, they'd give him X-Men because he'd put it all on the line like there. Hey, it's my friend Ben. Oh my God, I've known Ben for so long online. We met on the same place. EJ Sue and met. We all met on like something called the Wizard World Forums and Pencil Jack. Ben has a Lego channel, so Ben's Brick Designs. He makes a lot of his own original stuff, and it's just gorgeous stuff. And he's been hired to do Lego stuff for, like, for instance, didn't you make Austin's like Capitol or something? Like this humongous replica? I think it was Austin. Anyway, nice to see you, Ben. Haven't talked to you online in a little while. It's nice to see you. This is a great comic, folks. If you like Constantine, you like Hellblazer, I've recommended this before. This is a little bit the same idea. This is a lady named Ellie who knows about magic. Magic is very, very dangerous in this world. She knows the rules and how to circumvent them if necessarily, and she works with a lot of gangsters and stuff. And in this world, her late uncle basically was Constantine for like shortening this down. And when he died, we learned this like last issue or something. When he died, he wanted hell to be better, so he cast a spell that all the lords of hell were banished from hell when he went there. That means they are now on Earth. They all have a coin that you can find, and if you have that coin, you can control that devil and whatever its power is. They all have different powers and different legions that they follow. Of course, they're all trying to, kind of screw you over. So it's very dangerous stuff. And in this one, she's meeting a friend of hers that she had when she was basically an older teenager or something. I just want to show this. Look at this. This is a Penagalan, which is, I think it's a Thai monster, like from Thailand. I've seen this in some horror movies. It's basically like a woman where it's just like sort of her head and spine and stuff floating around through the sky. And I just look at that. It's gross. The artist on this, Charlie Adlard, I think he's having a lot of fun on this. This is the guy that drew Walking Dead for decades. But I feel like this is really showing what he can do. And I think that he's having fun with this, like drawing all sorts of cool, weird monsters and stuff like that. I mean, we know that he can draw like people in shadow, like having tough, intense conversations. We've seen that kind of stuff. But this adds like monsters and stuff, and it's really cool. But I do recommend it. This is only issue 8, so it's probably not hard to catch up on. Yes, it is the Walking Dead guy. I think they eat babies. I think so. There's always so cool rooms to them. That's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. Creepshow was fine. House of Slaughter was a little better than fine. This one features a child assassin that doesn't talk and he doesn't have arms. That's the gimmick here. And his name is Alabaster, and the Monster Hunter people have like sent him undercover to live at a foster home because there's monsters on the loose there, and he does go out at night, and basically he's got like knives in his boots, and he just sort of jumps and flips and chops them all up. It's interesting. Dark Ride is a really good horror book. Again, this is issue 8, so that's kind of late to jump into. But it basically is like a family that owns a haunted theme park, although the only person that really knows that it's more than haunted. It's like a deal with the literal devil. And the father did that. And like, this is his son, like realizing for the first time that like there are real monsters within the theme park. And it gives us a little bit of the backstory of like this dark stuff that like his mother and father did to like both ensure his safety, at least for a time. I don't know. It's dark. It's really cool though. It's really cool. The idea of going to a theme park where you feel like you're kind of safe going on like rides because it's a big budget, like Disney-esque place, but like that literal people are disappearing here and there off of rides, but in small enough amounts that people like don't really know how bad things are. Oh, it's just really scary. I can see that being a little similar to Devilman, a bit like Itchy the Killer. Yeah. You're talking more about House of Slaughter. And the last one I'll talk about real quick is just the alternates. And so, okay, this is sort of a spin-off of the book Minor Threats. Minor Threats was by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Blum, co-writing their version of like almost sea-level supervillains teaming up to keep themselves safe from an out-of-control bunch of superheroes and some supervillains. Okay. Now, in this same world, Tim Seeley has joined as a writer. We're now following some sort of superheroes, but they're closer to like the Doom Patrol. They're the weirdos of the world. And it's really good. But I'll be honest, as I was reading this, I didn't really get vibes of like satire and parody so much as this really felt like I was reading classic 90s Vertigo, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. There's some really cool stuff going on in here. But I'm not going to get overly into it. By the way, this like dead person, what's falling out here? Tiny little versions of themselves. Like this guy can split into smaller and smaller versions of himself. So it's not like quite like Ant-Man. It's like multiple man with like a finite limit, and each time you divide, you're getting smaller. But that's everything I had to go over. It's past 7. I'm sorry. I know my sister wanted me to do some drawing today, but I think I'm out of time because I really need to get ready for my trip to Japan. I didn't pick up Gargoyle of Gotham because it came out Saturday. I work on the weekends, so I don't have it yet. It is in my pull folder at the comic shop I go to. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Raphael Grandpa did with Gargoyle of Gotham #1. Yeah, that looks really good. So I didn't get it quite yet. I will, but I'm not going to be really reading that until I get back from my trip. So it's going to be a little while. Today's show was so good. I'm going to watch the video on demand. Thank you, Michael. Kind words, but thank you for the super chat as well. That's sincerely appreciated. Sincerely. Did I see that Marvel's bringing back the original X-Men in a one-shot? I did not see that. I think it's the Krakoa era definitely ended with the Hellfire Gala this year. Really? That's a lot of us. It's a really nice time there. I did not see that the Loki release was moved up, but it's I'm looking forward to that one more than most other things. More than other things. The Shrinking Guy, that's the exact same as another thing I've been working on. What is with us all having the same collective consciousness? Well, it's all based on the execution, isn't it? Not the idea, but the execution and actually getting it done. What? Infotron himself just donated money to me? He must appreciate that I let him hang out with the water heater again. Thank you, whoever Infotron is. I really appreciate that. That's really nice. Yes, lots of people saying, you know, like, have a good time in Japan. Thank you. Oh, any manga I plan on picking up? Quite possibly. Both Chrissy and I have been studying her Japanese really hard. She wants to pick up some Junji Ito in Japanese, and I think I might pick up Naoki Urasawa's Billy Bat. I have put it off each other time I've gone there because I didn't think my Japanese was necessarily strong enough, but I might pick it up this time. So we'll see. Thank you, Sean Christopher. Jane. It's Japanese for bye. I will have a good time. And I will try to we'll try to do some travel vlogs about, like, you know, comic book and nerdy stuff that I encounter. I'm going to try to make an episode there about, I'll just say, about Osamu Tezuka. So I'm pretty excited to make that for all of you. I think I've got, like, my equipment and everything ready. Sean Chen, thank you so much for the generous super chat. Coming at a great time, sincerely, because, yeah, that's just really, really nice of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. No, not planning on picking up any Western comics over there. Spending money for Japan. That's how I took it. Thank you very much. That's every little bit helps, because I'm going to try to be kind of frugal, to be honest. I'm not planning on buying a lot. If I'm being honest, I will go to, like, some comic stores. I'm not necessarily planning on buying a lot there. Food, train, that's the kind of stuff I'm going to be spending on. Yeah, you just gave me $20. Of course you can plug it. If I can plug my Kickstarter, Evermind launches tomorrow. Let me take a quick look here. I think I've got it here. Let's take a quick look at this. Present, share screen. Am I showing it there? Let's see. Exclusive print run for a sci-fi epic in a near future about a scientist whose discovery of technology changes the world. Starts tomorrow from 247 Comics. All right. Well, good luck, Sean. Thank you again for the super chat. That's super, super kind of you. Anyway, let's see. You hope I pick up some Leiji Matsumoto books. Yeah, super influential artist. Some really great stuff. Not planning on doing any meet and greets, although I have to admit, every time I've gone, every time I have been recognized. Last time I got recognized several times. That was very flattering. I definitely didn't expect that. Wow, thank you, Phil. Enjoy Japan. $5 is like close to like 800 yen. So thank you. That's really, really nice. That's definitely a full meal. Cool. Some people think that Sean's project will look good. See you at New York Comic Con. I hope so. I am going to go on Saturday. I don't have a booth. I'm not, like, doing anything, but I will be walking around, and I'll definitely be trying to spend a lot of time in Artist Alley. That's one of my favorite things about New York Comic Con. But yeah, I recognize Chris in Japan, and I've never even been there. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Will you visit the life-size Gundam statue? Well, if you look on this channel, I do have a video called, like, top 10 nerdy things to do in Japan, and you'll see that I have seen it, and I've got video of the Unicorn Gundam transforming at night. It's like 3 stories tall, folks. It's so cool. I think I will go back to Odaiba Island, where that statue is, and look at this time the Gunpla Museum. It's got sort of like every Gundam kit that they've ever made. They have on display there, so I think I might go there. I don't know. I might have. I'm sure I have some viewers there. I'm not in touch with anybody there, but yeah. So I'm gonna make some travel vlogs. I'm gonna make an episode about Tezuka-san, or Tezuka Sensei maybe, and I'll try to do some live streams to like sort of recap the news, but I don't know exactly how I'll do that. So we'll see. We'll see. Well, I hope so too, Samuel. I'll try to like post where I am when on social media so that people can know, because I'm always happy to say hello. All right, I think I'm going to call it a night, folks, and get some dinner and try to do some laundry before I leave. But I had a great time talking to you, and the next time we talk, it could be while I'm in Nippon. So take care, everyone. Keep reading comics. Bye.